Are we live?
We are live.
There we
Yeah,
go. Yeah.
people are
Well,
starting to trickle in.
perfect. Well, welcome everybody to Raising Trees, with a special series on the Business of Arboriculture series with several partners. And we'll do a formal introduction in a minute. But anybody that's been on any of the webinars I host and moderate, please take a minute to jump in the chat box and let us know where you're coming from. Just always fun to see where our participants. I understand we have over 167 registered. So I'm curious if a lot of those are coming from Georgia or other places. All right, Cincinnati, Ohio. Welcome. Athens, Georgia. Atlanta. Boise, Idaho. All right. Denmark. Welcome. Coming in fast now. I'm having a hard time here. Rochester, New York. Houston, Texas. Auburn. Well, that's where I'm at today. So Alpharetta, Georgia. Wisconsin. Welcome. Greenville, South Carolina. So Jesse, I think you've got a really broad attendance this time. This is fantastic. Seattle, Washington, welcome. Manchester, New Hampshire. Y'all, we will kick off the webinar in about 1 minute. We'll start the introductions. As you join us, please jump on the chat and let us know where you're coming from. Welcome, Kentucky, Virginia, Youngstown, Ohio, New York, Denver. I think we got a pretty good spread. Iowa. Welcome, Hong Kong. That's quite a trip. I'm not sure. What's your time zone over there? New York, welcome. Royal Oak, Michigan. Oh, 2 a.m. Thank you for being here. That is true commitment to the field of arboriculture. Absolutely.
No pressure to us in this presentation.
You got to keep people awake there for 2 a.m. Jesse. Well, y'all, my clock is reading 12 Central. We know that it's 2 a.m. in Hong Kong and various other times around the United States and beyond. I know we saw Denmark and various other places. So welcome to the Raising Trees webinar series. And this is a special series on the business of arboriculture that is a collaboration of not just Auburn University Extension, but as well as the University of Georgia Warnell School of Forestry, and the Georgia Arborist Association. We want to thank their hard work for making this series possible. And this is also a webinar series that is being funded by the U.S. Forest Service, a grant that we received a year and a half ago to try to improve certification and professionalism in the field of arboriculture. And so we came up with looking at different ways to educate people on various parts of arboriculture, and that's where we had the series on the business of arboriculture. We know that a lot of people come into the field of arboriculture from a lot of different fields, from a lot of different backgrounds, from a lot of different education levels. And this gives us that opportunity for maybe new business owners to kind of learn from some of our more experienced colleagues out there. So this is our fourth in this series. And we started the series with a DOT requirements. We then had one on job costing, where we talked about how you do some of that job costing in the field. And then we had risk management and insurance. And then today we have two speakers who are going to be talking about building your brand. I think this is a fantastic topic in the world of social media and marketing, and how do you stand out from all of your competition that's out there. For those of you that are looking for CEUs, yes, we are approved for ISA CEUs. And the way we handle it with this specific series is there will be a form posted on the chat at the end of the webinar series. So please stay on for the entirety of the webinar series. Look for that form, fill it out, and you will have access to it. I would also like to note that these are being recorded. And so if you missed the previous ones, you want to go back and watch them. If you want to watch these, obviously there's no CEUs for those, but you can go back and learn about what we discussed in the past. So a couple other little housekeeping notes. The speakers have asked me to pause the webinar periodically if there are questions. We ask that you put those questions in the Q&A box. That's down at the bottom, kind of next to to the chat. So put something there, and I will be sure to, when appropriate, pause the speaker and bring that question to their attention. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our two co-presenters today. We have with us, who will be kicking it off, Matt Searles, who is with Eocene Environmental Group. He is one of their vice presidents. And then also we have Jesse McCullen, who is the executive director of the Georgia Arborist Association. Welcome to both of you, and thank you for being here. And I will turn the virtual floor to y'all.
All right, I'll work on sharing my screen here.
And while Matt's doing that, for those previous webinars, Jesse just put the YouTube channel, so you can go in there and check those out.
All right, sound check. Bo, are we good?
Sound great.
And you have visual as well?
I have visual. Your webinar looks good.
Good
Thanks.
deal. Well, hello and good afternoon or morning or middle of the night, everybody. Thank you both for your introduction, but my name is Matt Searles. I'm Vice President of Forestry and Utility Division of the Eocene Environmental Group. We provide vegetation management consulting services to electric utilities across the United States. I am also the past president for ISA Southern Chapter, a multi-time Tour de Trees rider for the supporting the Tree Fund, and an ultra marathoner as well. And if anybody's going to be in Atlanta this weekend for the Atlanta Marathon, please seek me out. I'll be there racing. Hopefully we get to meet in person. I was asked to be a part of this series to help provide some perspective and some guidance from a business etiquette purview. My background in this actually started in the 7th grade, where this farm boy from rural Georgia was in a very unknown place of being at Shorter College on campus in Rome, Georgia, at an etiquette course that I had no business being part of. But I'm very grateful for that experience. I find myself using it on a daily basis, honestly. Also, I have to attribute some of my continued training to the Boy Scouts of America. I was able to achieve the rank of Eagle Scout. I went to the University of West Georgia, where I attended the Richards College of Business, where I further developed my skills. And then in the professional world, Eocene Environmental Group and Rat Service Corporation have given me many opportunities for training through the Dale Carnegie program, Dartis Communications, and many other opportunities that are too lengthy to admit. So by now, you have at least passed judgment on me, and that is a very natural and normal thing to do. You never get a second chance to make a first impression, so hopefully my first impression is what I intended it to be and received in the way that I hoped that it would, but probably not. There are lots of skills that I have still yet to learn and that I will continue to hone myself. But the reason that you passed judgment on me already is because we're hardwired that way. There's a little portion of our brain called the basal ganglia, which is responsible for flight or fight mode, your thirst, your hunger, habits that you form, things that, frankly, we can't control, that started with many, many, many generations before us and through adaptation, so that we can operate in this world safely. So whether we like it or not, we're always making a first impression and judging others to ensure our safety first and foremost, but then also to determine, if we can trust an individual or not. And what I'm hoping that you get out of this today are some ways to reduce your barriers to that success, so that you can at least start from an even playing field with some of your competition in the industry, and hopefully elevate above them so that you can outcompete them and drive your business. According to Passive Secrets, and this is a United States study, 35% of people believe that first impressions of others are extremely important. Interestingly, and luckily, I don't have to deal with this today because we're not in person, but 85% of responders believe that someone will be more positive if they smell good. Their first impression would be more positive. When meeting someone of importance for the very first time, 43% of folks responded that they actively try to be nice and friendly to that person of importance. And 69% of Americans surveyed, they form an opinion before the person even starts speaking. So they're looking at body language and how somebody's dressed or their personal hygiene as a part of this. So in our industry of arboriculture and the green industry as a whole, frankly, there's a low barrier to entry. I'm sure you've seen it. Anybody with a saw and a truck with a phone number plastered to the side of it, or maybe even written by hand in paint, have the opportunity to enter into this industry. And that can saturate the market, which can drive prices low, especially based off of our societal norms where everybody's looking for a deal or for something free and trying to get it for as cheap as possible, even though we haven't always learned our lessons of you get what you pay for. And there's also a lack of standardization within the industry. It's not like some other professions where you have to wear a particular uniform or something of that nature. But again, that also creates an opportunity. And that's what I'm hoping to help you with today, is to at least set some of those baseline understanding and best practices for how you can elevate yourself above your competition and outcompete them in a competitive bidding or sales environment. So, we may be out in the field like my friend and colleague Pete Burkett here, but that's a very stark differentiation between the fellow doing a wheelie or manual on a lawnmower with his shirt untucked and dirty shoes on, compared to this professional looking individual here that's getting to do an aerial rescue. But as I mentioned at the beginning, most of the communication that is had oftentimes is based off of your appearance or body language well before you even begin to communicate. And so from a communication effectiveness perspective, and this is from Morabian in the 60s and 70s, Morabian et al., for face-to-face communication, only about 7% of your actual message is what is communicated to the other individual. Their perception of what you're saying and what you're trying to say, 55% of that comes from their body language, and 38% of it comes from their tone of voice. Now we flip that as we have just phone conversations, or you're leaving a voicemail, something of that nature, where the tone of your voice and how you say it accounts for 87% of the message that is being delivered to the recipient. And about 13% of what you're actually saying is how they're going to feel and how they're going to interpret it at the end of the message that they're listening to. So messaging is really important. I'm not trying to discount and say that your message isn't important. It's just, you've got to have all of it together to be really effective. And so whenever you have the opportunity to deliver that message, I highly recommend, and this is how I train my staff, is to develop that spiel. You get that one chance to make a first impression. What are you going to say? So if you have practiced ahead of time and written it out and understand what it is that you can come with, that little story about yourself that maybe help you reach your audience and connect with them on a more intimate level by making it natural and making it genuine, that can set you up for success that others may not be able to realize. If you don't have this and you're just firing from the hip, maybe you're really good at that and you're on the level playing field anyways. But if you're stumbling over your words or you don't have that catch, you might be behind your competition from the get-go. One of the most common overlooked areas of communication, in my opinion, is your voicemail greeting on your phone. How many business cards are you handing out? How many placards or advertisements do you have around town where you're leaving your telephone number? And then somebody calls you, and the first thing that they hear is your voice. If you have a custom voicemail greeting, otherwise it's just some stock leave a message after the beep thing that Apple came up with. But if it is a voicemail greeting, that is a touch point and maybe one of the most common and most frequently heard messages that's coming from you. So I place high importance on this, and again, train staff and recommend that you spend an extra amount of time on your voicemail greeting to ensure it's up to the standard of who it is that you are trying to convey that you are. Again, it needs to be, you got to make it natural. And that requires practice. It requires having an outline set up and ready to go so that you know what you're going to say whenever you hit that record button. And some other best practices like, be in a quiet environment when recording, make it a high quality recording. I don't recommend driving down the road in your car and using the Bluetooth for this. From a pure safety perspective, that it starts with a bad example. But I left an example at the bottom of this page for you to refer to if you don't have anything and you needed something to refer back to. And it's, hi, this is Matt with the EOC and Environmental Group. I missed your call, but leave a message and I'll call you back. Thank you. It's short, it's sweet. I don't apologize for missing their call. Maybe I was really busy, but I'm letting them know if they do their part by putting a message in, I'm going to respect them to the point that I'm going to at least return their call, and I follow through with that. Bo, I see you're off camera. Is there a question?
Yeah, we just had a question pop up on the Q&A. Is that what's the difference between maybe a spiel and we oftentimes hear the other term, an elevator talk or elevator
Yeah.
speech?
I've used those terms interchangeably and synonymously. So that is another great way to say that. If you have your elevator talk, it's just an abbreviated pitch, I suppose, is another way to say that. So thank you for that question. Hopefully I answered that. And if you have any additional variations that you'd like to share or any further questions on it, I'd be happy to try to answer those. So also, when people are leaving you a voicemail or any other form of communication where it is in a vacuum for you to go check on and you have to get back to them, I think it's really important, especially for customers that are established customers, or maybe after the first time that you meet where you have this opportunity, to set up some expectations for when you might be able to get back in touch with them. And that could also be part of your voicemail greeting or your email, et cetera. For me, the way that I establish these expectations with my staff and clients and my family, so that I can have those barriers and set up success with them as well. For text, I try to respond as soon as possible. It's usually within a few hours, if not immediately, that I'm responding via text. And that's just my personal preference. It's how I organize and manage my day. Voicemail, I try to get back to somebody with their voicemail the same day or early the next business day, depending on when they left the message. Regarding emails, I'm always, if there is a question or something, some kind of action where there's no other deadline specified, I'm trying to respond to that either same day or one business day following the receipt of that email. And then what if you're out of the office? Well, a really good option so that people know what to expect is to change that voicemail greeting and leave some expectations in there so that they know that you're out of the office and when they might be able to expect to hear from you. And then the same thing with the email. Leave some expectations of when they might be able to reach you, or if it's an emergency situation, what are the instructions? Who else can I call since you're not available to be able to get my questions answered, my concerns addressed? All right, if you have scheduled meetings, these are, maybe in person or maybe it's a virtual meeting like we're doing today. punctuality and preparation are key components of the etiquette from these business meeting perspectives. So from my perspective, time is the most valuable non-renewable resource. Now, from a business perspective, time equals money. You've got a business to run, and you've got other clients that may need you as well. And then you've got your personal endeavors that you need to address as well. So meetings can really impact your quality of life in multiple different facets. And it can do the same for the people that you're interacting with. So be on time. Make it a point to be on time. If you're not able to do that for whatever reason, the earlier that you can communicate that in the process, the better, in my opinion. That way, whoever it is that you are robbing their time has the ability to make modifications to their schedule or their day, and their expectations are set so that they understand what is going on and why. Another really important component to meetings is to have an agenda. So I've left you in a sample agenda here for kind of an outline of how a meeting might run. Now, obviously, this is a bit for a formal type of meeting, but it could be an informal meeting as well. You may be going out to provide a client an estimate, and what an agenda can be for you is a way to keep yourself on track, make sure that you hit all the points that your customers may have concerns about, leaving a little bit of time at the end to address anything that's unexpected. But that gets you in there, and it gets you out of there, and it respects both parties' time. Networking is another key component for business etiquette in our profession. Again, networking could be at a conference, or it may just be in your everyday life, the opportunities that you have to run into somebody or meet somebody that you may not know, but can lead to a connection that can drive your business. So just like in the beginning, have that elevator pitch, have that spiel ready, and that can set you up for success early on rather than degrade where you're coming from the beginning. And I see Bo off camera again. Feel free to go ahead and interrupt.
Thanks, Matt. We had a question of, do you audio record all your meetings?
I don't audio record all of my meetings. I think I could go down a pretty large rabbit hole with the whys and the why nots. But there are definitely some things that I like to keep private, and some things that definitely need to be recorded. So I think that there is a place and a time for recording meetings, such as this one. I think this is fantastic that we're able to provide this type of training into perpetuity via YouTube channel. So networking as well. I'm going to talk a little bit more about business cards, and then the all-important follow-up. All right, so the introductions goes back to the beginning of what we were saying. These are concepts that apply across different aspects of this, but have that spiel ready, practice, and just remember the importance of first impressions and how it can give you a leg up. Business cards. There's a bit of etiquette around how and when to give or receive business cards. The way that I like to do this is to develop a bit of a rapport first. To me, it's not a volume game, it's a quality game. It's about building relationships. And so I want to get to know the individual a little bit first. And then I'll ask their permission if I can give them a business card. Whenever I'm receiving a business card, I truly think about that as a gift. And so ways that I may try to show my appreciation of that gift that I'm receiving is make a comment about their card. If it says that they're from Des Moines, Iowa on the card, and I have a related uh, experience that I can share with them about that, or if there's something unique or really cool about their card, like maybe it's one of those new um, contactless sharing card that you can tap with an iPhone and it automatically puts it in their contact book. It's something that you can just give them a compliment or continue to develop the relationship that you're already building. And another thing that I also like to do when I can is have a Sharpie or an appropriate pen and write some notes on that business card about action. I don't have the best memory in the world. How can I make sure that I remember some important features or key points in our conversation that I can refer back to when I do my follow-up? When you're building that rapport and you're sharing business cards, that is a very valuable lead that you have. And maybe it's just for networking, maybe it's not direct sales, but maybe it leads to something later down the road. So I set reminders on my calendar to make sure that I follow up in an appropriate cadence, maybe one that we set up during our initial meeting for when I'm going to respond back either in a text, a call, an email, or schedule a meeting that, or maybe I've already scheduled a meeting with the individual that gifted me that business card. And then I review the notes that I took, and that's how I formulate my follow-up response to that individual so that I can hone back in on what it was that was meaningful about that conversation for that networking opportunity to develop into a true long-term relationship. All of this culminates into your personal brand. And you can take this as far or as short as you want to go with this. This is an example of one of my best friends. His name is Ricky Streeter, and he's a real estate agent. And this is his key that he refers back to anytime that he's rebuilding his website, he's developing a new business card, sending out a flyer, any kind of marketing that he's doing. And he's got his established color palette, he's got his fonts already picked out, and he's got his logos that are unique and different that he can pull from this to redevelop his marketing, and it's always consistent. And I think that's a really good segue. This is all from that personal brand perspective, and what Jesse's going to be able to do is talk about this from an organizational perspective as well. Bo, is there additional questions that maybe I can answer?
Yeah, I think a perfect time as you're transitioning. There was a question that asked, do you use a CRM tool, and has it worked well for you?
So that is so a CRM tool is basically a way to manage your client list. So yes and no. We as an organization, we've been shopping for a long time for the right fit for us. We've tested many different types of things, and they're challenging. Some of them are very challenging to use and they don't fit perfectly. I have my own system that I have in place that I use on a personal level. It's not perfect either. So it's really about, does the shoe fit appropriately? Then wear it, would be my advice. But a CRM system can be a very valuable system to help manage your contacts and when to follow up with them and where you're at in the sales process. It's a great question.
And there was another question that popped up as you were speaking. It is, what's your take on digital business cards?
I mean, I think they're really fun and cool. It's kind of like going to the grocery store and paying with Apple Pay. It's just like, I like it for whatever reason. It's simple and easy. There are some IT concerns that I suppose could be a barrier to that with certain organizations. And then also, I still have a journal and I write by hand, and I really enjoy that process. And so letting go of the traditional business card and moving to something that's digital is also something that feels like I'm losing that nostalgic touch. And you know, I think it fits for a lot of people, and it's just based off of your personal preference. I think it can be a really effective tool, though. Thank you for that question. Jesse, are you ready? Can you steal the screen from me?
I'm going to steal it from you. I'm going to share my screen.
And I think I left you with just the right amount of time so that we can open it up for questions at the end as well. So
It's
thank you.
perfect. Thank you so much. Can you see my screen okay?
I can, and it looks good, and you sound good.
Perfect. Thank you so much. You really teed me up nicely for the change in topic. So Matt did a great job of focusing on the individual, and we're going to broaden the perspective now and focus on the company as a whole and a bigger picture view. So again, my name is Jessie McClellan. Most of you, if you know me, are familiar with my work with the Georgia Arborist Association. I am the executive director of the Georgia Arborist Association, but I've only been in that role for about a year, a little bit over a year now. Prior to that, I was with a local company. I live in Athens, Georgia. And I was with a local company called New Urban Forestry. I started there in 2011, just doing some bookkeeping. It was a tiny company, only one crew at the time, and worked there for the next 10 years building that brand until it was about a $3 million company before it sold to a larger company. And then I stayed with that company for about 3 years and did marketing and a bunch of different other things. So I've touched a lot of different aspects of the business, but my favorite thing is building a brand and finding ways to connect with community. So that's a little bit about me and my history. So we're going to dive right into what is your brand. So your brand really defines who you are and how the public sees you. And so that includes a lot of different elements and a lot of different choices that you have to make. And in my opinion, it's easier to make those decisions up front when your business is new, and so that you don't have to decide on things later on. So your brand includes your logo, obviously. So, I'm going to use this monster tree service ad that happened to conveniently pop up when I was planning this presentation. I hope that Ryan, who is one of the managers at Monster Tree Service of Athens, is not on this call, but I'm not trying to say anything about their branding or anything. I'm just happen to have them as an example, as well as Spiders Tree Care Service, a local company here. So the logo, we're going to look at that a little bit closer in some of the following slides, but it's really the symbol that identifies you to the consumer. So it's an easy way to be recognizable and stand apart from other companies that might have a similar name. They might have tree care service in their name. They might have tree service or arborist in their name. But if you have your unique logo, that's going to give a visual cue to the consumer that you are different from this other company. And then we move into color scheme. So that is part of your brand. The colors that you choose for your company are going to set you apart. And that includes your shirts, your hats, your trucks, your business cards. All of that is a choice and a conscious decision that you have to make as a company. What colors are going to set us apart? You can go even as far as having, I was given, I don't know if you can see it, but I was given this shirt today by a company that had their own custom colors made from Arborware. So if you buy a certain number of shirts from Arborware, you can have them do a certain color combination for you. And that can set you apart from other companies. That can be very expensive, but it can also be as simple as just saying, we want this green to be our color. And then down the line, as your company grows, you might decide to get the custom color scheme so that sets you apart. Companies like Davy do that as well. So those are choices that you can make for your company. The typography that you use. One thing that I highly recommend in identifying your brand is making the choice up front of what font you're going to use. So you don't want your business cards, your website, your ads, all of it to have different fonts. One person's using Wingdings and one person's using Comic Sans. You want to pick one and a style of font and be consistent with it. So that makes you look cohesive and professional and like you have spent time thinking about who you are as a business. Same with voice and tone. So the language that you choose really matters. And I have an example here with this monster ad. So at the top, it says our arborists are committed to helping homeowners maintain healthy trees. And then down here below, it says tree service professionals. It says form and then tree service professionals. So, the average viewer is not going to look at this and say, are they arborists or are they tree service professionals? But when you're speaking to your clients, you want to be consistent in your choice of language for those. Each time you say a word like tree service professional or arborist, that's a choice that you're making to say, this is who we are. And if you train your team and you say up front, okay, we want to be known as arborists, we want to be professionals in this business, then you have your entire team saying then that gives your company, your brand, a specific identity. I have this in this Spider's Tree Care Service Inc. example as well. I don't recommend taking pictures while you're driving down the road, but I have several examples of that in this presentation. Do not judge me, please. So Spider's Tree and then Care Services Inc. is the name of this company. So the way that they have spread out the name of the business, it kind of makes it look like Spider's Tree and then Care Service Inc. So even the way that you place the letters on the page, place the words on the page, can have an impact in the way that people view your business. This probably was an intentional choice of they want to be known as Spider's Tree, but they also do service. So, they included that down below, but that all of that was a choice, including, the Black background and all of that. In voice and tone, this can be broken down even further. So I had a former colleague of mine that I think his eye would twitch and he'd kind of spasm anytime somebody said the word customer. He preferred to use client when referring to a tree care client. The reason being is a professional service has clients. So think of doctors and lawyers. You go see the same doctor year over year. You have a lawyer that you use, professionally. You go back to that lawyer every time. They have clients. A customer is very transactional. So a customer is someone who goes into a convenience store, buys something once, and never returns to that convenience store. Whereas a client is somebody who comes back to you year over year. So just that one small choice in language can determine how you treat those individuals, in that I want to build a relationship with this person and I want them to come back to me year over year over year. And then your vision is also part of your brand. Why does this company exist? Do we simply want to be a tree removal service that comes in and cuts down your trees and leaves? Perhaps. And maybe you are fine with saying these are our customers because you never want to see that person again. But all of this goes into who you are and how the public sees you. Branding matters. Your first impression matters. So Matt was talking about your professional appearance in, how you present yourself. For that first impression matters for your company too. These pictures, again, I was driving, so I apologize. The truck says tree service, free estimates, large and small jobs, and then a phone number. And you'll notice there's a TV in the back of the truck, and then there's a flat tire. So, when I look at this, and if you've ever driven to Trees Atlanta's Candida Center, you're probably familiar with this truck. It's been there for quite some time, but when I look at this, do I expect them to be inexpensive? Do I expect them to be able to get to the job site? And this is an extreme example, of course, but it's also an example of how we make decisions about a company and how our first impression impacts what we think we're going to get out of a service. So I expect for this company to be inexpensive. I expect for them to maybe not show up when I ask them to because they have a flat tire. So, if you present yourself in a professional manner, then it's going to live up to or not the expectations of your clients. And it's not something that happens overnight. Branding is something that can take a lot of time to build an audience and for people to understand who you are. So I'm going to talk a little bit about your logo. So in this day and age, and I'm just going to hit play this video, there's really no excuse for not having a logo for your company if you're doing business. My fake company is always called Joe Bob Cut a Tree. So I made a fake logo using AI software that I just found online in a quick Google search to make a simple logo for my fake company. And I want to say this with the caveat that I highly encourage people to use professional artists and designers. You cannot replace that with AI. However, if you need something really quick to look professional, this is a good starting point, and it's accessible to anyone. I literally did this in a minute. It's very easy to use. It's visual cues. It's free. So there's really no excuse in this day and age to not have a logo. Now, I also will say that, sometimes you get what you pay for. So, you may take this, whatever you have designed for Joe Bob Cut a Tree, and take it to a artist or a designer to help you, customize it a little bit more. But this is an excellent starting point to get ideas for your company. I'm going to give another example. So this is a little bit more of a design for Joe Bob Cut a Tree. This was using Canva's in-house service. Canva is a paid subscription service, so you do have to pay for this. So this Joe Bob Cut a Tree looks a little bit more put together than the previous example I had. It does take a little bit more prompting. So the prompt that I gave this top row is create a logo for a tree service company called Joe Bob Cut a Tree with an oak tree in the logo and Joe Bob as the focal point. Again, you get what you pay for. So on the second row, you have Joe Bob Cut a Tree, which is not correct. So if you don't have good skills in Illustrator or another design program, you might have some trouble, if that was the logo that you chose, it might be difficult because it would need a little bit of editing, but again, pay a professional. That's what they're there for. So the company that I worked at for about 12 years was called New Urban Forestry here in Athens, Georgia. Like I said, we started out as very small. When I started there, it was actually started with a truck in my front yard. And this was our logo at the time. And it's not a very good logo. It eventually changed, and I'll show that later on. But this logo, while it was not visually a very good logo, it was actually a really good launching point for the business. So the logos can be a way to talk about your core values. And I'll get into what core values mean in just a minute. But this logo features a Frank Lloyd Wright house. So those of you who are not familiar with Frank Lloyd Wright, which I hope that you are, but if you're not, he was a famous architect. He has a lot of houses, predominantly in the Chicago area, and he influenced a lot of architecture, particularly mid-century architecture in the United States. And his philosophy was all about viewing the landscape as a whole and the interconnectedness between nature and architecture, and keeping trees in their natural form. And all of that aside, the reason for having this logo with the Frank Lloyd Wright house in it was a way to talk to people about the philosophy of the business. So our consumers would see this logo and say, what is that in your logo? Is that a house? Why do you have a house in your logo? What does that mean? And it was a way to talk about what was really important to the company at the time. So we really wanted to talk about how we see the whole of the landscape, and how trees are an important part of the architecture of your house, and how keeping them intact can create continuity between your house and your landscape. And so this logo, while it wasn't visually fantastic, it was a way to talk to our clients about what was really important to us as a company. So what is a core value? It kind of seems like a corporate buzzword. And I'm sitting here at the Athens Clark County Landscape Management Office, and I just happened to notice that all over the office are their core values. So I just snapped a picture really quick. It's even over their time clock. So, it's something that you see a lot in businesses that have been around for a long time, or, corporate offices, but that's the shared values, behaviors, and practices that shape how employees interact and work together. I like to talk about core values a lot. So if you ever see a presentation that I give, most likely it's going to include something about core values, because I find that it's really important to define this as a company. It is what brings people together. It's why people want to work together, why they want to choose, one company's shirt over another's company's shirt, even though that other company might pay 50 more cents an hour. It maintains consistency and cohesiveness if you have a why. Why do we do this? Who are we? What makes us tick as a company? What brings us together? It defines the goals of the company. So if you want to have easier time making decisions about your company, and I'll give an example of that later, it helps guide that decision making process in what really matters to the company. And it sets you apart from other companies that might do the same work. So in any given town that you live in, even a small town like Athens, Georgia, there, you open up the Google listing and you can find 18 companies on the first page that do the same work. Why does somebody choose your company over Joe Bob Cut a Tree? There's a lot of reasons to choose your company over Joe Bob Cut a Tree. It's not the best business, but what sets you apart from the other companies in the area? If you define that early on and you have a way to talk to people about that, that gives you an edge over your competition. Oh, sorry. Okay. And then it's important to reinforce those core values. So having a brain spike, something that, like a tagline, that reminds people of what those values are. So for Joe Bob Cut a Tree, it's "we cut out the competition." Not a great core value, also not a good tagline. But that core value is perhaps that they're cheaper than any other company in town. And that is what really matters to them, is that they get the most jobs of any company because they're always going to be the cheapest no matter what. And that's important to them. And that's how they define themselves as a company. Not the best, not the safest, but they're going to cut out the competition because they're always going to be the cheapest. That is a defining choice for that company. And it's important that you reinforce this, whatever this is for your team, with everyone. That includes the groundspeople, the salespeople, everyone that works for the company. So that if, for instance, your tagline or your core value is "we believe in protecting our people and your property." When you go out to Mrs. Jones' house and you are, cutting limbs above her beautiful native azaleas, and she comes out and she says to the groundsperson, "You're doing such a great job of protecting my azaleas. Thank you so much for doing that." That groundsperson can reply with the same message that was told to her by the salesperson initially, that, it's our core value that we protect our people and your property. So we really care about protecting your property, and that really matters to us as a company. And then she might be more likely to go down the street and tell her neighbors, "Wow, they did such a good job of protecting my native azaleas. This company really values my property and does a really good job of taking care of it." So getting other people to tell that story for you is one of the most effective ways of reinforcing your core values. If you have a message that is clearly defined and something that's easy for people to remember, they're more likely to share that with their neighbors and their friends. So how do you get other people to tell your story other than just constantly telling it to people? Well, again, having a very strong, very clear message to tell is going to make it easier for people to remember. And then don't be afraid to ask your clients to share with their friends and their neighbors. So, Matt talked about following up with your clients. And I think that, his message was more on the front end of the sale, but follow up with your clients on the back end as well. So after you've already made the sale, after the job is finished, follow up and talk to your clients and say, "Mrs. Jones, what what went well for this job? Like what did we do right? What could we do better next time? You know, our core value is we believe in protecting our people and your property. Did we live up to that core value? And then ask her to share that. You know, if you had a great experience with us, would you please leave us a Google review? Will you please tell your friends and neighbors or your neighborhood listserv, because we survive on word of mouth. That is how our business grows. That is going to be far more valuable than any Facebook ad that you can put out there, is having clients share their experience with their friends and neighbors. And then join community organizations. A lot of organizations like the Chamber of Commerce or the Home Builders Association or the apartment complex associations, if you join them as a member, they'll give you 2 or 3 minutes at the beginning of the meeting to talk about who you are and what your company is. And, you know, if you go up in front of this and you give your elevator pitch or your spiel, as Matt liked to call it, and you say, you know, we're a tree company and we do removals and prunings, you know, cool. Like everyone's going to go, okay. And they may or may not remember your name. If you go up in front of the Athens Area Home Builders Association and you say, you know, my name is Jessie McClellan, my company is New Urban Forestry, and we believe very strongly in protecting your people, our people and your property, and that is our core value. And here's how we do that. This is what it means to our community, and this is how it impacts people. That's a far stronger message than just going, we do tree removal. So joining these community and organizations and having the opportunity to speak to people can really work in your favor. I'll give a tiny little plug for Georgia Arborist Association or your local chapter of the ISA or whatever tree organization is in your area, like the Athens Tree Council. If you go to in-person events and you may be thinking, oh, it's just going to be my competition or other arborists there. Networking is a really powerful tool, even within your own industry. So you could meet a landscaper there who has a job that needs a big crane, and you're like, oh, I've got a big crane. You know, I can help you with that. You never know who's going to show up to those events as well, looking for somebody to help them with their business. So showing up to these in-person organizations is a great way to meet people and also have the opportunity to share your story with other people. And then they're more likely to share that with other people as well. So the more opportunities that you have to be in front of people talking about your story, the more impact that you're going to have. And then don't be afraid to adapt and change. So, you know, over 10 years, New Urban Forestry changed a lot as it grew, and the climate in Athens changed, and people actually in the community changed their views of trees. When we first started out, there was a lot of topping going on, and over 10 years, as we spread this message about the importance of trees and the importance of hiring an arborist and you know, professional services, the community slowly started to change, and I think it has a better understanding of tree care now than it did 20 or 15 to 20 years ago when the company started. So as the community changed and the perception of trees changed, so did the company and the core values. So eventually we changed from this, you know, arguably kind of crappy logo to a much more modern one with the choice of this color combination. So, you know, all of these elements are a choice. The green and the orange, you know, that was the colors that we used for our shirts, for our business cards, for everything. And then we redefined our core values. We spent several very long meetings sitting down and saying, what is important to us and how do we want to be remembered? We ended up settling on 2 core values of be better and beyond capable. We kept them short and sweet so that we could remember them easily, and then trained our entire team on those 2 core values. Now, what does beyond capable mean? Any company out there is capable of removing a tree. Being beyond capable means that you do better than that, that you turn down the chipper when somebody's walking down the sidewalk. You take care of Mrs. Jones' native azaleas. You are beyond the capability of the average company. So that was a really important core value for us. And when we rebranded the company, it was an opportunity to kind of redefine those core values and define who we wanted to be in the community going forward. So my final thoughts, the more thought and effort that you put into your brand up front, the easier and more professional, the easier you are going to have, the easier time you're going to have in putting that brand out there into the world, the more professional and polished you will appear to consumers. If you make those choices early on, then you start out looking put together. You start out looking like you know what you're doing, like you have a business license, like you have insurance. If I look at a company that has really great branding, I'm going to think that they have put the effort into all aspects of their business, not just their brand. And then if you put that investment in early, it can help guide your decision making, making it easier in the long run to make decisions that you don't have an easy answer to. And an example I have of that is, if your core value is the example that I gave, that I just made up, we believe in protecting our people and your property. If that's your core value, that's actually not the example I wanted to give. Sorry, my notes kind of disappeared, so I'm winging it here. Bo, go ahead and I'll come back to that point.
Sure. There was a question that came up that asked, could you please talk about the social media presence in branding? And they noted that they looked up NUF's Instagram page.
Sure, yeah. So this is a 30-minute presentation. And so I tried to focus really on big picture instead of going into the details of marketing, because we could talk all day about this. If you look at the social media from the last 2 years, it had changed a lot when the company was bought. But if you go back to several years before that, my philosophy in running that social media account was always people first. So I wanted to tell the stories of the employees and the community and the people that we worked with. So I always focused, I didn't post anything that was generic. I always focused on highlighting a cool project or telling a story in some way, because nobody's going to remember that you posted Happy Valentine's Day, but everyone's going to remember a silly dance that the intern that we hired for a semester from high school did on his last day. And highlighting the fact that we did that, like we worked with the local high school to offer this internship and working on building the community. So it was a way to post something silly and also highlight the achievement of an individual. So I really believe in the power of sharing stories with your consumers and highlighting the people that build your business and that make it run in the long term. Thank you for that question. Sorry, that was kind of long.
That was an excellent response. Thank you.
So I wanted to go back to helping guiding your decision making, and this is kind of my final point because I know I'm close to ending on time. So if your core value is that we believe, let's go back to the original New Urban Forestry logo and the core value being about preserving the entire landscape and looking at the landscape as a whole and the importance of trees. That can guide your decision making on the sales front as well, because if a client calls you out to look at a large pine tree that they're terrified is going to fall on their house, and all of the neighbors have picket signs saying, save the tree, don't remove this tree, and you're really like, oh, I could use the money, but I don't want to piss off the neighborhood. Like, what do I do in this case? And this tree is very healthy. It's not going to fall on her house. It's very low risk. What do I do in this situation? If you have your values identified up front, that can make that decision very easy, because you can say, you know what, we are arborists and we believe in long-term tree preservation, And we've defined that. And if we go against that and remove this tree, then we are not who we say we are. And so we will tell our client, I'm sorry, we're not the right fit for this project, and you should really consider your neighbors in this process. So that's just one small example about how defining who you are as a business, and I believe that is a strong part of your brand identity, can help guide decisions in the long run for your business. And that's my final point.
Well, thank you very much, Matt and Jesse. That was really a fantastic overview of this project. I realize it's kind of dipping your toe in the water. There's so many directions to go with this. It's almost, I wish we could spend more time, go into social media and other things, but I think y'all did a wonderful job providing an introduction. Any questions? We got a couple minutes left, and I think just as a reminder on the CEU, I think there's going to be a link posted in the chat box here momentarily.
I'm doing that right now. So it should
Perfect.
be in the chat box now.
So please take a minute, fill that out. That will ensure that you get an ISA CEU. And just as a reminder, this was recorded. It'll be available on the YouTube channel that we shared before. And if you registered today, you will also get an email directly from Jesse with the Georgia Arborist Association with this recording. I saw a note earlier about, access to PowerPoints. We have one better. You'll have access to the presentation that'll be shared there. So you can share it with your colleagues, maybe at a tailgate safety, whatever, at your local business. And just as a reminder, this series is a collaboration between my institution, Auburn University, University of Georgia, and the Warnell College of Forestry, and the Georgia Arborist Association under what we're calling the Business of Arboriculture. And Jesse, remind me, we have one more, don't we? Or is this?
Oh, there's several more. So the series goes until June. We kind of tacked on a couple at the end. So if you signed up for this webinar, you actually signed up for the entire series. So if you just come back to this Zoom, you'll have a different presentation in the series. I will have to look really quick what next month is.
I couldn't remember. And y'all, we will be periodically posting some polls. This is being funded through the U.S. Forest Service. I do have to, show them that we are making progress. So when those polls come out and surveys, please take a minute to let us know how the series has helped you, how it's helped your business. As I noted before, this series is really aimed at increasing professionals, especially within the field of arboriculture, especially those newer folks that are maybe entering this field. And that's the aim and the goal of this series. Any closing thoughts from our two presenters?
So next month is taxes for the arborists and business setup. So exciting topic, but necessary topic.
Yeah, that's a funny one. It's kind of one of those very, very important, maybe not the most exciting.
I hope everyone will join us. And if you have any questions for me, if you signed up for this through the Georgia Arborist website, then you have my contact information. I'm pretty easy to find. So I welcome all of your questions, comments, and feedback. Thank you.
Somebody wrote that the link was not working.
Uh-oh.
Can we double check that before
I
we
will give me a second and let me
Jesse, it worked for me.
multitask here.
Okay, I was saying other people saying it's working. So the individual just try it again. If you have any problems, send Jesse an email, and she, I'm sure, can help you with that
Yes,
process.
please do. I'm happy to help if you are having trouble.
Jesse, that reminds me, I got to click that link too.
Here, I'll post it again so that it's like the last thing in there. There you go.
Perfect. Well,
Sometimes people
we
have
are.
trouble on phones, so.
So with that, we are now one over. I want to thank everybody for joining the Raising Trees special series on the business of arboriculture. And we look forward to having you all back and join us next month to learn about taxes in the field of arboriculture. So I think that's going to be just another great webinar in this series. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Jesse, for a fantastic presentation.
Thanks,
Learned a lot.
Bo.
Cheers, y'all.
Have a great day.